All right, so in all your finance studies, you're mastering these beautiful, elegant models of how rational markets are supposed to work. But today, we're going to get into the messy human side of money. We're going to explore that huge, and I mean huge, gap between what the textbooks say we should do with our cash and what our weird, wired-up brains lead us to actually do. Let's jump in.
So let me just ask you, straight up, are you a perfectly rational investor? I mean, really. Do you always make the absolute best choice, weighing every single long-term consequence before you spend a dime? Yeah, if you're like pretty much every other human on the planet, the answer is probably not. And that's exactly what we're here to talk about. So here's the game plan. We'll start by looking at the rational you versus the real you. Then we'll do a super quick refresher on an ideal financial concept. And then we get to the fun part, our behavioral reality, seen through this wild example I'm calling the $1,000,000 coffee. And finally, we'll get practical and talk about how you can nudge your future self into making better choices. Okay, first up, let's get right to the heart of the matter, the core conflict in all of behavioral finance. It's really this constant battle between the person we are in the textbooks and the person who's actually standing there trying to decide between saving for retirement and buying the latest iPhone. You've all seen this, right? The standard life cycle theory. It's the traditional model, and it basically assumes we're all little financial geniuses walking around. The idea is that our main goal is just to smooth out our spending over our whole life to keep a nice, stable standard of living. And in this perfect world, that big conflict between spend now or save for later, it's easy. We just figure it out. No help needed. But then there's the real world. The behavioral life cycle theory admits that we are, human. Our wants are way more complex than just smoothing. We want stuff for practical reasons, sure, but also for emotional ones. And that conflict between spending and saving, it's really hard for us. So what do? We use these little mental shortcuts, frameworks, and self-control tricks to get by. We kind of need a little help. And this slide just lays it all out, crystal clear. The standard theory says no tools needed. The behavioral theory says, yeah, we do. We need things like mental accounting and nudges. Just understanding this difference is, honestly, the first huge step toward making smarter financial choices for yourself. Okay, now before we get to some numbers that are going to blow your mind, let's just quickly frame this with a concept you've absolutely mastered by now, the time value of money. Because we're about to see how this simple principle is the engine behind some truly staggering outcomes.
You know this inside and out, right? Compounding grows money, discounting brings it back to today's value. But the thing is, we almost never think to apply this massive, powerful force to our smallest daily habits. And it's this silent, relentless engine that can turn tiny decisions into either incredible wealth or a really, really deep hole of debt.
So now let's see how this all comes together to create something kind of shocking. We're going to take that powerful lens of the time value of money and focus it on one simple, everyday choice. Here it is, the question. That $5 coffee you might grab without even thinking about it, what's its true cost? Not just the $5 today. What's the real, long-term cost to the future version of you? So first, let's just look at one piece of the puzzle, inflation. That silent thief of your buying power. Let's just assume a pretty normal 3% inflation rate every year. What's that same cup of coffee going to cost you out of pocket in 40 years? $16.31 for one coffee. That's more than 3 times the price. It just goes to show you how the value of your cash just evaporates over time if you're not putting it to work. Now, this quote here, this says it all. It perfectly captures the core psychological mistake we all make. We see a small $5 purchase and we think, it's nothing. We consistently, dramatically underestimate the long-term consequences. So let me show you what big really looks like. Okay, let's run a bit of a nightmare scenario, but a totally plausible one. You put that $5 coffee on a credit card every single day. The card's got a 20% APR. And let's just say you let it ride. You never really pay it off. That debt just compounds and compounds day after day for 30 years. What do you think the damage is? Over $3.6 million. No, that is not a typo. That is the absolutely devastating power of compounding debt working against you. A simple $5 a day habit, when you finance it the wrong way, becomes a multi-million-dollar problem. This is the true cost of that coffee. Okay, deep breaths. Let's flip the script. What if you took that exact same $5 and instead of letting it work against you, you made it work for you? Let's say every day you put it into a simple S&P 500 index fund and it earns a historical average of about 7% a year. What happens then? Almost $187,000 from the exact same $5 a day. Now, look at that number and think back to the 3.6 million in debt. The difference between those two outcomes, it isn't winning the lottery, it's not some brilliant stock pick. It's just a small, consistent choice compounded day after day for decades. So, knowing that the stakes are, well, that high, how do we actually bridge this gap between what we intend to do and what we actually do? How do we help our present self make the decision our future self is going to be so thankful for? Well, this is where behavioral nudges are a game changer. One really powerful tool is something called mental accounting, and you can picture it like this pyramid. The idea is to create rules for yourself. You've got to cover the base first, your absolute necessities. Then you can move up to discretionary stuff like travel. And only after all that is covered can you even think about the major luxury items at the top. It's a simple framework that forces you to build from a solid foundation up. And look, this isn't about depriving yourself of everything you enjoy. It's not all or nothing. It's about making conscious trade-offs. What if you just compromised? You still get a coffee, but maybe it's $2. You invest the other $3. That tiny habit still grows to over $112,000. It just proves that it's the small, consistent habits that really move the needle. And nowadays, tools and apps can just automate this for you, making the smart choice the easy choice. Okay, let's bring it all home. Let's recap the most important things to take away from all this, moving from the academic theory to what you can actually do. So here's the bottom line. First, those rational standard models are useful, but they're not the whole story. It's our real-world behavior that actually drives our results. Second, never ever underestimate the power of tiny habits compounded over a long time. Third, just being aware of your own biases is a massive first step. And finally, you can use simple tools like mental accounting to nudge yourself in the right direction. No superhuman willpower required. So, I'll leave you with this one final thought. The theory is great, but it's worthless if you don't apply it. So my question to you is, what's one small, simple nudge you can design for yourself starting tomorrow that will help you align your daily actions with your biggest long-term goals? Seriously, think about it. Your future self is counting on you.